Hey everybody, let's take a look at the homework for week 6 for Tuesday night, and we're going to be looking at the integer operations. We're looking at integer operations for Tuesday. So our first one, the integer operation is subtraction, and that is rule 2. And rule 2 says we're going to add the opposite of the second integer. So we're going to change this problem to add the opposite. So we're going to switch. Subtracting 11 is the same as adding 11 negatives. Then we go back to rule 1. So we have 8 positives and 11 negatives. Because we have positives and negatives, they're going to cancel each other. So we got negative 11, positive 8. Now, because these are different signs, we are going to subtract these two numbers. So 11 minus 8 is 3. And we have more negatives, so our answer is negative 3. For the second example, subtracting 13 positives is the same as adding 13 negatives. So we're going to switch both signs for the subtraction and the integer sign. That was rule 2. Rule 2 says we add the opposite. And now we take a look at them. We have negatives and negatives. We have 13 negatives, and we have 3 negatives. Now, because these are both the same signs, we're going to add these numbers. So we have all negatives, so 13 plus 3 is going to give us 16. And because they're negatives, our answer is negative 16. So we got 15 divided by 3. So we're going to divide the numbers. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And this is rule 3. And rule 3 says if we have just one negative when we're dividing, then our answer is going to be negative. So here we got 4 plus negative 6. So we got negative 6 and negative 4. We check these signs. Because these signs are the same, we're going to add these numbers. Because they're both negatives, we're going to add 6 plus 4. And they're all negatives. We're going to end up with negative 10. So gotta clear this off and then move down here. So we got next one is rule 1. Rule 1, we're adding 8 plus 2 negatives, which is really pretty much just saying 8 minus 2. So you have 8 positives, you're going to take away 2. But if we follow our strategies here, we have 8 positives and 2 negatives. We look at the signs. Because these are different, we're going to subtract these numbers. 8 minus 2 is going to be 6. We had more positives, so our answer is positive 6. So 6 times 9. 6 times 9 using your multiplication chart is going to be 54. And you only have one negative here in the multiplication process. So multiplying, you have 6 groups of negatives, you're still going to have negative groups. 27 divided by 9. 27 divided by 9 is going to give you 3. And you have 27 divided into groups of 9. You got 3 groups, but they're negative, so you have negative 3. If there was another negative over here, then that would switch it to positive, but that was not the case. And 8 times 11, no tricks here, 88. And then subtracting negatives, this is subtraction, so we're going to use our rule. We're going to add the opposite. So this is not 12 plus negative 9. Here, the subtracting negatives is making it more positive. So 12 plus 9 is going to be 21. They're all positive, so we got 21 positives. 21 or positive 21. Okay, continue on to Wednesday's homework, where we're going to take a look at graphing points. And we're going to write the coordinates and the quadrants for each of the points below. So we're actually going to have to zoom out here a little bit. So make sure we're using the left one is going to be x and then y. So our first coordinate, we're going to look at point N. So at point N, we're going to circle the y and come down and circle the x. So point N, we're looking on the x-axis and the y-axis. And we can actually label both of these above and below. So left to right, we got the x-axis. That's going to be -1 and +3 for point N. Now let's go to point M. Point M, we're going to circle our x-coordinate and go ahead and label it, -3. And then we're going to go over to our y-coordinate. And the y is going to be 1. Go to point P. Point P, we're going to circle the x-coordinate, follow it down. So the x-coordinate for point P is going to be -1, and the y-coordinate is going to be -3. We can't quite see it there, but make sure we get the negative in there. It's down below 0. And then point G, where did point G come from? That's supposed to be Q. So point Q, the x-coordinate is 3, and the y-coordinate is -1. So now we take a look at our quadrants. So the coordinates are ordered in a C shape here. So we go quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So point N is located over here. Point N is located in quadrant 2. Point M is also in quadrant 2. Point P is located in quadrant 3. And then point Q is located in quadrant 4. And it's a short week this week, so Thursday, it's a last day of homework. It's going to be due Thursday night for week number 6. So we take a look at the rational numbers, classifying rational, integers, and whole numbers. So we look at our definitions here. So rational numbers is going to actually include all of our numbers and numbers with remainders. So whole numbers will also fit into the rational number classification. So if we take a look at +75 is a whole number. But whole numbers are also part of our integers group, and it is also part of our rational numbers group. So the number 75 is categorized as rational, integer, and a whole number. So we look at -3/4. 3/4 is not quite a whole number. So 3/4 is not a whole number. And because it is not a whole number, even though it's negative, its integers are going to be the whole numbers and their opposites. But 3/4 is a fraction. It's less than a whole number. And so it only falls into the category of rational numbers. So 0 is classified as a whole number. And if it is a whole number, then it fits into all these other categories of numbers classifications. So whole numbers are also integers. So let's see, 0 will also be an integer and a rational number. So it fits into all groups. So you take a look at 8.5. Now 8 is a whole number, but because of the 0.5 is not a whole number. And so if it's not a whole number, then it cannot be an integer. Then it only fits into our classification of rational numbers. So -15. 15 is a whole number, but it is not a positive whole number. So -15 is a integer, which is a negative value, and it is also a rational number. So integers So whole numbers, integers, rational numbers, they fall into categories going up, but from the top down, rational numbers do not go into integers and whole numbers if they're a rational number only. Now, 8/4, be careful, 8/4 is a fraction, but it simplifies to 8 divided by 4, which is 2. 2 is a positive whole number. And if it's a positive whole number, then it also fits into integers and rational numbers. I'm going to move down here for the last group for classification. So negative 8/4 simplifies to 2, but because there's a negative sign out front, it's going to be a negative 2. Now, whole numbers are going to be positive whole numbers, not negatives. Negative 2 it is a whole number, but it's a negative whole number, which makes it an integer. But then it also falls into the rational number category. So the decimal value here is not a whole number, and because it's not a whole number, it is not an integer. And so then it only falls into the rational number category. So 10 is a positive whole number, and because it's a positive whole number, it will be an integer and a rational number. Whole numbers are not negative. Integers are, this is a whole number, but it's a negative whole number. So that makes it an integer. And it also falls into rational numbers because all of our numbers are going to fall into that category. And it's not a whole number. We have a decimal value. If it's not a whole number, then it's not going to be an integer, and that one's going to be rational only. Make sure you click on Turn In, and then wait for the blue Submit button up at the top right.